Hey friends, welcome back to Guess What? Compliance Can Be Simple. I'm your host, Dr. Natasha Gass, and as we start 2026, I want to say how much I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Whether you're listening during a busy workday or catching up between meetings, I am really glad that you're here. Now, a new year tends to bring urgency. New goals, new initiatives, new expectations. Leadership meetings always start to fill up. Budgets are being finalized, and vendors are definitely there making promises. Then compliance often gets pulled into that urgency and framed as something we need to fix quickly. So today, what I will be doing is stepping out of that mindset and asking you to do the same. Because compliance does not respond well to urgency. It responds to attention. Compliance is not a project you complete. It is an operational condition that you have to maintain. And this distinction matters, especially as we move into a year where oversight expectations are not slowing down. Every type of fine we've seen from OIG or a CMS article, you can tell that oversight is stepping up. Now, at the start of every year, I always hear the same things from healthcare teams. We need to clean everything up. We need to make sure we're covered. We need to update all of our policies. And that instinct is understandable, but it often leads teams to start in the wrong place. When compliance is turned into or treated as a big annual event, it becomes overwhelming. I have seen it time and time again. Teams try to fix everything at once. They review their documents and then rewrite those documents without checking their workflows. They purchase tools without assigning ownership. Then there's the big rush and automatically burnout. By March, most of these efforts stall. Not because your staff doesn't care, but because the reset was never designed to fit real operations. When teams think of a compliance reset, I have found that they oftentimes imagine reviewing or rewriting policies and then buying new software to add to what they already have. But in reality, the most effective restarts or resets, they start with attention, not those tools. Remember, healthcare is constantly changing its environment. You have staff turnover. Vendors evolve. Technology is updated often, and then that is rolled out. And then workflows adapt to real life pressures. When you think about that, and then you think about your documentation rarely keeps pace unless someone is intentionally checking alignment. Now, a reset simply asks one question. Does how we work today still match what we've documented, what we've trained on? And is assigned responsibility done? That is a much smaller question than are we compliant? And it is far more a useful one. I have seen resets fail. And there are three main reasons that these reset fails. First, they are way too big. Teams try to fix everything at once and end up fixing nothing well. Second, they are too fast. Compliance requires reflection, not speed. When you rush, you create gaps. And then they are too abstract. Policies get updated without being tested against the real workflows that you have in your practice. And when all of these things happen, compliance becomes theoretical instead of operational. So when you think about resets, think about small, focused resets that work because they respect how busy your healthcare teams actually are. These steps prioritize awareness over perfection. Now, what does a practical reset actually look like? I can tell you that. A realistic compliance reset focuses on a few core areas that almost every audit touches early. Yes, every audit. First, who has access to patient information? How are patient requests handled? By whom? Is this a third-party vendor? Is it someone specific in your practice? And which vendors touch your PHI? Do you have someone that you're no longer working with? That's a vendor, but they still have access to your PHI. They can go in, they can see all of this information, but you no longer have a BAA on file for them. Or how issues are escalated when something goes wrong. Who escalates it? Who does it escalate to? What happens after that escalation? And if there are corrective actions that needs to be put in place, who is going through from start to finish, ensuring that everything is put into place? And then who is taking this corrective action and reviewing to understand if it worked, or do you need to go back to the drawing board? These are all questions you have to ask yourself. This is about restoring awareness. When teams can clearly explain these core areas, trust me, audits becomes conversation instead of feeling like an interrogation. Now, I have a few examples we can talk about. The first is, what if you're a practice and you add a new scheduling tool? You know that it works well operationally. Your staff, they adopt this new tool quickly, they'll learn it, your patients like it, but no one checks whether access levels align with job roles. Meaning, all of your staff has access to this particular tool, but not all of your staff needs it because they do not handle the same information. No one then updates the vendor documentation. So that means all of your vendors have access to information that they no longer require. That turns into a fine if you're audited. That will bring a corrective action. Then think about it. No one confirms how patient data flows through your system. When you realize these things and you look at it from the bigger picture, you'll realize that the reset moment is noticing the gap early. When you notice it early, you can put steps into place to fix it. Not after there's an incident and you have OIG, CMS, or a state regulator knocking on your door. Another example you can think about, you have a staff member that changed roles. Their access has never been adjusted to their new role, so they have roles for their old jobs as well as their new jobs. No one owns the permission reviews. Everything is working fine until it doesn't. These are not dramatic failures. They are quiet misalignments that you need to look at before an auditor notices. Because auditors, they notice misalignments first. I'm going to pause here and give you a short reflection moment. Ask yourself or your leadership team, can we clearly explain our patient access workflow without pulling up a policy? Do we know who owns vendor oversight today? Not last week, today. Have workflows changed without documentation, or training updates. And if an issue occurred tomorrow, would escalation of that issue be clear? If you're sitting there and thinking, I do not know this, or I cannot answer these questions, this is not failure. It is information. And information is exactly what a good reset provides. Here's the shift I want you to carry into 2026. Compliance is not about avoiding penalties. It is about maintaining operational credibility. When teams demonstrate awareness, ownership, and follow through, they buy themselves flexibility. When issues go unreviewed for long periods, your options narrow quickly once oversight begins. A reset, however, does not eliminate the risk. It reduces the surprise. So as we move through 2026, my goal is to help you approach compliance with clarity instead of urgency and confidence instead of stress. This year is not about doing more. It is about noticing more. Not about doing more. It is about noticing more. And with that, checking your alignment. Assigning those ownerships to specific individuals in your practice and documenting awareness. Compliance absolutely works best when it supports real work. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Guess What? Compliance Can Be Simple. Keep it simple, stay compliant, and protect your patients.